Hello, I'm Josh Strife Hayes, and this is Strife Reads Writing Prompts. Today's prompt. The Reapers come every 50,000 years to wipe out organic life that has reached the stars. However, this time they arrive at the heaviest resistance they have ever encountered. In the grim darkness of the future, they find 40k. This story combines characters from the Mass Effect video game series and the Warhammer 40,000 universe. The following story was written by Estellus, and I perform it with their kind permission. 3 weeks after receiving a distress signal from the outlying colony Hesperia 4, His Imperial Majesty's ship Ark Royal tore a breach in the fabric of reality and forced her way back into real space. Contact from the colony had been brief and lacking in detail, reporting only upwards of 60 hulls weighing in between light transport and heavy frigates. Sector Command had, in response, scrambled the only ships available and could only pray it would be enough. Moments after the first emergence, several more gaping rifts in the teeming unreality of the warp opened, and the rest of the task force joined the flagship. As radiation washed over the ships and sensor sweeps of the system began, Commodore Konstantin Artur van Hannek reviewed his line of battle, which seemed to have escaped the Empyrean intact. Sabre Squadron, 5 Sword-class frigates, positioned themselves around the flanks of the formation, affordable, durable, powerful for their small stature. Each one a mere 1,600 meters from armoured prow to engine cowling. One of the mainstays of the God Emperor's navy across the galaxy, they would pursue enemy fast movers and intersect enemy fire concentrating on his ships of the line. HIMS Cadia's Remembrance, the newest addition to the sector fleet, took the fore. A Lunar-class cruiser, the workhorse of the Imperial Navy, a ship no officer would frown to serve on. 5 kilometers of armor plating, lance turrets, ordnance batteries and torpedo tubes. This would be her first battle, and the Commodore made a note to keep an eye on her, especially as she was captained by an officer on his first command. HIMS Witchhammer, a Tyrant-class cruiser, was the opposite of Cadia's Remembrance. One of the most venerable ships in the sector fleet, she had been crushing Xenos raiders, renegade warships, bio-monstrosities and planetary installations under her extensive weapon batteries for 6 millennia. Plasma drives thrumming, the ancient warrior took position behind, below, and to the side of her sister cruiser. Assured that the rest of his task force was present, he glanced around the cavernous bridge of the Ark Royal. He was proud of his ship and crew, and knew that whatever came, they'd acquit themselves with distinction today. His eyes were drawn to the flickering holotank before his command throne, depicting the Mars-class battlecruiser's layout. 5,400 meters long, she carried 16 strike craft launch bays. A line of titanic lance turrets ran down her spine, her flanks bristled with heavy cannons, and beneath her armoured prow hung the most powerful weapon in the Navy's arsenal, a Nova cannon. 8 ships. The distress signals spoke of over 60 enemy combatants moving against a colony defended by a handful of picket ships, and Sector Command could spare 8 ships. A voice from the sensor pit, Lieutenant Ab Smiddy, unless he was mistaken. "Commodore," the woman called. "Radiation plume is clearing, sensors returning are coming in, sir." Her voice was calm, businesslike. Konstantin flicked his fingers across keypads on the arms of his throne and dismissed the image of his ship. In its place, a flickering green representation of the star system appeared. A small cluster of Aquila icons rested on the edge of the gravity well, and moment by moment more of the system came into clarity. He knew it would be hours before their sensors reported anything from the inhabited inner reaches of the system, however. The downsides of subluminal warfare on a luminal scale. With a few brief, restrained orders to his second-in-command, he directed the Imperial task force down the gravity well. There was no point in waiting here for more information. They would know everything they needed long before they saw the interlopers. Assured that everything was in order, the veteran naval officer retired to his quarters. More than 8 hours later, the Commodore returned to the bridge with a thermal mug of hot tea. The flotilla had made their way significantly farther in-system and had a clear, disturbing picture of the state of things. Dozens of strange vessels hovered over the stricken planet, reminiscent of Tyranid bioships in shape, but clearly inorganic in origin. No signals could be detected from the colony, previously home to 500 million loyal Imperial citizens, and, unbeknownst to the Commodore or his crew, one tenacious, insidious pleasure cult. No response was had to Imperial hails, mundane or astrophatic. No movement or sign of life on any of the orbital installations. Worse, the strange vessels were massing, returning from whatever sinister purpose they'd had, and forming up above the planet. Hours passed. These crustacean-esque ships gathered and started to drift across the system toward the Imperial task force, which thundered through the void toward them on pulsing plasma drives. Sensor returns were analysed and fleet composition determined. 40 transport and light hauler-scale hulls were written off by the fleet captain as fire ships, dangerous in numbers but fragile and individually unimportant. The alien armada also contained over 20 frigate-sized ships with unknown armament, and one ship the Commodore postulated as the enemy flagship that had mass and scale of a light cruiser. After much debate, the decision was made to engage the enemy. The larger, hopefully more durable Imperial hulls and more powerful reactors and shields they hope would give them the edge they needed to bloody the enemy fleet, enough to bring the fight into more reasonable odds. In later years, the Battle of Hesperia IV would be forgotten by the Imperium as a whole, a curious footnote in Inquisition archives. The origin of the mysterious warships was never discovered, but they were quickly written off as a credible threat. The opening blows of the conflict were struck by HIMS Ark Royal, a single luminal Nova cannon shell shrieking through the void and tearing a gaping hole in the Xenos armada. Analysis of the detonation by tacticians aboard the flagship quickly determined that the unidentified ships lacked any void shield capacity of note, or were not bringing them online. Torpedo volleys from the Remembrance and Witchhammer disabled or destroyed more enemy ships from beyond retaliation range, and Ark Royal was able to fire a second salvo from her prow cannon before launching her strike craft and preparing for close quarters battle. The ensuing brawl was less of a battle than it was a massacre. Ordnance batteries designed to reduce planetary fortifications and crack open the hulls of ships carrying meters of armor ripped the invaders apart. Laser lance batteries intended to penetrate void shields and eviscerate the warship beneath carved unprotected vessels apart, and the most powerful of the Xenos fire impotently washed away from the shields that were created to carry their bearers through an apocalypse and allow them to fight on the other side. The Imperial task force rode through the heart of the enemy fleet, batteries blazing, and when they came around for a second pass, there was naught but a handful of enemy ships struggling to disengage. In his memoirs, Fleet Admiral Konstantin Artov von Hanek expressed his regret for the way things went at Hesperia IV. 7 of his ships would have been far more useful in other war zones. Ark Royal could have reclaimed the system alone.